will present their manifestos to you, and they're contesting for the position of chairman. First and foremost, I'd like to call on Mr. Uche Messiah Olowu to speak with us, tell us about himself, because there is a lot that has been written here about him, and I'm sure he'll be in the best position to. Okay, whilst Mr. Uche Messiah stands to collect the accolades, let me tell you a little bit more about him. He's a banker with 31 years cognitive experience. He has worked with two major financial institutions, namely Union Bank of Nigeria and United Bank for Africa. Was head corporate banking, energy, oil and gas in Union Bank, managing relationships across different companies. And at UBA, he was head corporate banking for energy, oil and gas, South, domiciled in Port Harcourt at the time. He has an MBA in management and a PhD in management as well, which has to do with organizational behavior from the River State University, Port Harcourt. And his interest focuses on managerial leadership, effective leveraging, emotional intelligence. He's also a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, and was his 20th president between 2018 and 2020. He's also a fellow of Institute of Directors, Enterprise Risk Management, Compliance Institute of Nigeria, and Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria as well, and he sits on various boards of different companies. He also served as a member of the Governing Council of River State University of Science and Technology, Port Harcourt, between 2012 and 2015, where he was chair of Honorary Awards Committee and chair of Audit Committee. He is happily married with children. I present to you Mr. Uche Messiah Olowu.
Thank you, my moderator. Let me stand on all existing protocol. I am Dr. Uche Olowu. Let me put Musa so that I will be Dr. Uche Musa Olowu, a complete Wazobia. Anyway, I'm from Omok in River State. Let me not bore you because the moderator has rolled out my CV. However, that's an abridged version. I'm currently into consulting and financial advisory services. I would want to say that I have managed a Union Bank where I was head of corporate banking, energy, oil and gas. Managed a portfolio of over 170 billion as at 2017. Notable relationships in this portfolio include Shell, ExxonMobil, Chevron, NMPC, and LNG, with other multinational oil services. Why am I putting all of this? I was also a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, as I served as the 20th president from 2018 to 2020. I was privileged to be nominated by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to the notable think tank of this country, research think tank, and that is Nigerian Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies, where leading to the award of MNI. Why am I speaking to this? All this speak to my experience, which I will bring to bear in my role as a chairman of our estate if I get elected. Right. For me, this is a call to service. And my philosophical foundation is premised on what Apostle Paul said. Herein, I exercise my conscience. I exercise my conscience, void of offense to God and void of offense to man. Clearly, that means I'll make the hard judgment calls. I'll make sure that my conscience leads this. I'm not taking part, like Barry will say, I'm for no one, but I'm for everybody. This estate has to function and must function. Now, what is our current realities? As you all know, poor and epileptic electricity, which hitherto was one of the motivating factors for investing in the estates, as property owners or as tenants seeking value for their money. Provision of water service, a very important resource endowed by God, by the Almighty, is not satisfactory. Poor service quality. Yes, the vice chair said, I'm a member of the ad hoc committee, but in this water issue, there are a lot of vested interests, and those vested interests will be broken. Thirdly, there has been episodic security challenges coupled with illicit drug trade and usage. These are major challenges. And this all over, it's not that it's uncommon everywhere. You know that drug usage, illicit drug, and security has been a problem, major challenge in our estate. And we'll get to address this frontally. We are currently witnessing, it's not uncommon because this is an estate that is over 30 years with aging and failing physical infrastructure in the community. We have not mobilized, like everybody has agreed here, we've not mobilized our collective social capital in addressing our problems. In my manifesto, I said the society, the community is fragmented, and that is clear. There are trust deficit. I'm happy that has raised all. Lastly, some residents have identified poor governance structure, especially in the area of leveraging the Constitution to regulate conduct. Here now there is, argument what is in the Constitution and what's not in the Constitution. And that's because we have not operated transparently. And also, a management of the estate with regards to transparency and accountability. As a management scholar, okay, fine, thanks. It's technology. So let me say this clearly, like we have all identified, that it is a call to service. What will be our response? What will be our response? Clearly, we want to build a community of mutual respect and shared vision. How are we going to do that? The social secretary will be directed to ensure that we come out with a program. But we're not going to do only that. If I get elected today, there will be stakeholders retreat where the EXCO, the management, and some invited parties will come together and recalibrate how we are going to restore the paradise by the lagoon.
Thank you very much indeed.
We're going to put in place focused intervention on the estate electricity. Challenges by improving the power sector. Let me make bold here. The so-called IPP is a no-no. It's a no-no. The reason being that we don't want to be locked up in a monopoly. Let me say, we are going to explore our social capital with the regulators. We're going to meet with the board. Georgie Tommy, who is the director of EKDC, once approached this estate for a better arrangement. We are going to confront those frontally and restore power. If there is power in Nigeria, there should be power in this estate. I want to make bold to say there will be zero tolerance for criminal activities and illicit drug usage because it's destroying our youth. I hear people say all manner of things, but I will fight drugs, but we are going to intelligently, strategically do that. It's not something we can discuss here, but we have a strategy for it. We are going to enhance the estate capacity. I heard the beautiful words of this treasurer. I fully support the treasurer. Other ways or means of getting revenue outside maintenance levy. Because the point is this, I've managed professional bodies, I've managed associations. The so-called levies, which is like subscription, cannot fund adequately an estate. So corporate social responsibility, other means of raising revenue will be done. There are people here, men of goodwill, who, when you communicate transparently, show accountability, will want to bring in their resources to improve the community. What is the end state? The end state is to raise the value of our investment in this estate, and it must be done.
Time up.
All right. So finally, I am going to make sure that we put a structure around governance to ensure responsiveness, accountability, and transparency. A secure estate built up with social cohesiveness. Thank you for listening. God bless you all.
Thank you very much indeed. Uche Messiah Olowu, who is contesting for a position of chairman of our beautiful estate. I would like to call on Gihan Mbelu, who is the current chair, to come and speak with us.
Good evening, everyone.
Before you go on, let me give you the honors of getting your own flowers as well. Gihan Mbelu is a venture capitalist, business advisor, and business turnaround specialist. In advisory capacity, he has been involved in the startup of an oil trading arm, biometrics management company, logistic management companies, amongst others, all becoming successful ventures. In 2012, he was lead advisor on the team that built the private-public partnership investment structure of the Abia State government under the Office of Special Advisor to the Governor on Trade and Investment, Diko Nwachukwu. Notably, Gihan was lead advisor in the integration of the world's largest privately owned security, Gather World, into Nigeria. He's advised on market entry strategy, board formation, licensing, and government policy, as well as aiding in market penetration. In 2016, he led negotiations for an equity buyback by Gather World Middle East. He has worked as lead advisor to Rear Admiral Ndubisi Kanu from 2012 until his passing in 2021. And Gihan has served VGC as an ex-office member of the EXCO, served in security, water, and power committees, and is the current chairman of VGC Lekki, Lagos. I present to you our current chairman, Gihan Mbelu.
Thank you very much. Good evening, residents. I'd like to thank the moderator. Of course, thank you to all the candidates here. You know, running an election for an election is a popularity contest. The willingness to serve is the key to actually serving a community like this well. So if we do get re-elected, I actually look forward to working with every single individual on that table. Of course, my personal life, I say, is for my family. My business life for both my daughters. I've been successful in these two lives. The one I continue to work hard at is my service to communities like this. I've always been community-driven, service-driven. Of course, from King's College, Lagos, being student leader many times in college in America, being president of various organizations. But my journey in VGC was a very interesting one. I started off in 2016 by forming a group called the Mandate Group. What that group was it was a body put together to close the gap between the leadership and the residents. In 2018, I was invited to be an ex-officio member of the EXCO. I was the only member of the executive to serve in the Power, Water, and Security Committee. On merit, I was unanimously picked by the then executive to run as chairman to help build on the values that we were forming. On security, we've kept your family safe by building a more effective security apparatus with the introduction of a new security company, better intelligence gathering, hiring a qualified CSO, building a 488-meter wall, shielding the commercial area from external dangers, and the deployment of CCTV solutions to better protect your family. On water, we inaugurated a water committee, which Dr. Olowu is part of, that has since ensured that matters of increase in tariff and SLA have finally reached a mediation process with the Lagos State Water Regulatory Commission, where a template and parameters for increase will be determined. We also work closely with the water company to ensure better service delivery and reduce service downtime for residents. On power, we continue to work closely with EKADC on bettering that service. As noticed in the last 4 days, we're getting somewhere. The problem we have faced lately is due to a lower capacity transformer feeding us and other communities on the Ikate Express line. If our load exceeds a certain limit, it trips, and it trips the line, and this is why we have frequent outages. This is also why there is a ration of power. Higher capacity transformers were delivered to EKDC 2 months ago, and installation has begun. This is why we had various downtimes in the last month, and now some stability in the last few days. Of course, there is talk about an independent power project. We had a committee put in place that has worked tirelessly on building a blueprint on the IPP. But of course, I want to assure you that when we do propose this to the House, it will be an optional service. In no way has anyone trying to introduce a monopoly to VGC. I mean, most of us that have worked in business, you know that you cannot grow much with a monopoly. We have successfully completed phase 1 of the Light Up VGC project, which we saw the pictures. We pioneered the first independent recycling hub on the axis. You saw the pictures. We have maintained healthy financials by innovating, partnering, and engaging with the community. We engage lesser on policies to better secure our access and alleviate suffering from our residents. It's important that I also state that I'm currently the vice president-elect for lesser, which is a 5-year term, and that brings better value to the community for the next 5 years. Of course, there's so many other things we've done. I stand here because we do have unfinished business. The community is at a critical point. We've worked tirelessly in the last 2 years. I would say very easily that the last 2 years has been equivalent to 5 years of our lives. We put in a lot of effort. We have created traction. There is stability. And we are at a critical point where we have to decide if we change that or we continue to work on the strongholds that we have. Thank you very much.
Going to end with questions that will be aimed. I'm sure some of you have your double barrels ready. Questions will be aimed at those who are going to contest to be chairman. That is, of course, the current chairman, Mr. Gihan Belu, and of course, let's see now, Mr. Uche Messiah Olowu. Can I have both of you come to the rostrum, please? Once again, those of you who would like to ask questions, please kindly do so by raising your hand. If you are online, also raise your hand so that those who are handling the Zoom will also be on hand to okay, we're going to take questions from the floor and we'll take questions from Zoom. Who has a mic? There's a gentleman, someone over there, raise your hand up first.
Thank you. Good evening, all. Once again, my name is Ehi Olinfo, J50A close 3, row 3 close 6. We hear the presentations very clearly, especially for the chartered accountants. It's all about costs and value proposition. And we listen to our present chairman, Mr. Gillian Imbelu. He reeled out all his achievements so far for these 2 years, but he was very silent on security. It is in our common knowledge that the cost for security was jacked with about 59% from the initial provider to the new ASA provider. And in that regard, we would like to know what are the corresponding extra value that we have gained from this hijack. Thank you.
Current chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ehi. I appreciate that question. Of course, it's important that I state that I received a recommendation from 3 EXCOs before me on the proposed change of security company. Now, this was done by security committees that had based this on proper intelligence, talked about a lot of the vulnerabilities with the former security company that we had, and the fact that they had been onboarded for over 13 years and there was need to change them. So in coming in, I took a look at those recommendations, as we do with every past executive. We look over their recommendations, and there was a tender process. Now, this tender process is done by a joint committee. The joint committee is the Tenders and Procurements Committee, the Security Committee, the Maintenance Committee, and the Finance Committee. Now, those committees look at all of these reports. They sit with the vendors. They go over the dynamics of what the change we need are, and they write a recommendation to the executive. It's important that I state that because I am the only member of all of those committees that does not get a vote on what company we use. These are all done academically by members or like by your peers who are members of committees. Of course, with the new change in security, one of the things that we faced 2 years ago was we had a number of burglaries. It was important to us that we had a security committee of international standards. ASA is an Israeli company. They are centered around intelligence gathering. Man guarding, anybody can wear a uniform and guard. What you pay for in security is the gathering of intelligence. We have a lot more intelligence today in this community than we've had in over 10 years. It has helped us deal with a lot of the threats from external factors and also internally, and that came at an added cost. There is no single cost to this community that we do not put in our financial reports. And everybody in this community receives those financial reports. And I want to make that a bit clear, that we do not expend 1 naira of your money unless that budget is passed in this house. And whatever recommendations are made are passed in this house. So all of that information is available to you. If we need to make it available in the next few days, again, we will do that. Thank you very much.
May I?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, good evening all. I notice everybody's talking about finance and how much things cost and all that. There's a place for that. And also notice people talked about water and light. For example, the President Chairman, you mentioned most of what you achieved, but there's a big problem. The problem of drug. Last year, there was a high-profile case. I believe it was probably the most high-profile case in the country of a drug bust in these estates. There was a case of a couple who obviously used drugs. They were naked parading the streets of VGC. Just a few days ago, a young man was going from house to house soliciting for code to go out. He looked like he was pissed in the true sense of it. This is very important for a community like this or any community. What are you doing? What are the lessons learned from what happened last year? And what are you doing to circumvent some of those things now? Because it looks like very soon, some of those things you talked about, like burglary and all that, is going to start. They go hand in hand with drug usage. That's one. Second one is the club. What is happening to the club? For over 2 years now, it's not operational to the full capacity. For a resident of over 2,000 houses, is not too good. Thank you very much. And the incoming, or I say incoming, sorry. Mr. What would you do in this case? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. Two very important questions. One of the first memos we sent out when we entered office was on the drug epidemic in Victoria Garden City. It is very clear that there's a drug epidemic in Nigeria. There's a drug epidemic in Lagos. There's a big drug epidemic on the axis, and that has spilt into the community that we have. One of the things that we've done is we've worked very closely with the security agencies on fighting drugs within the community. A number of these busts that you mentioned show the work that we've put in to fighting the drugs in this community. It breaks my heart, the number of kids in the last 2 years that we've had to either arrest, interrogate. In a lot of cases, children who have been threats to their parents' lives. One of the most difficult things to control, and one of the most disheartening things when you have a child, is your inability to control them when they're under the influence of drugs. And we faced a number of those in the last 2 years. I've been called out to many, many homes where kids have either been under some sort of medical attack, or they've tried to attack their parents, or they've just been out on the street. I tell you that as much as a lot of these incidents have become public, it is a good thing. And the reason for that is I feel in this community, we are living a false sense of existence in many ways. And the more we continue to publicize these things and fight them, the more value we can bring to this community. I can tell you that in the last 1 year, there's at least 6 families that have moved into this community saying the reason we're moving in is because we know these guys are doing something about drugs. We read about it, we watch it, and I will tell you the number. I have a good relationship with all the chairmen on the axis from 1004 to Ekpe. We're all part of the lesser group. I've had so many chairmen call us and ask how we've been fighting this, that they want to do it. They're either afraid, they don't understand the strategy behind how we've achieved our fight against drugs. And I want to assure you that we will continue. VGC is not a place for drugs. It is destroying our children. I've sent that message clearly to residents in this community, that if you are bringing in drugs to this community and you're affecting adversely the children of our residents, we will do everything to bring you to book. On, I think, your second question, sorry, I got carried away because I'm very passionate about that struggle in VGC, because it's something I get to experience nearly every day here. Sorry, I didn't write down
Yes,
the
you
second question.
can answer the second question.
Well, yeah, please. Okay, the
No,
club. The
clubhouse.
Yes, thank you very much. Again, that's another historical problem that we made an attempt to solve 2 years ago. VGC deserves and needs a recreational club. I also, as chairman, I miss going to that club. The bid for that club was put up about 2.5 years ago. And as a community, we bid for the club. Unfortunately, we lost to another resident. Now, we've been in discussions with this resident on partnering with him. Of course, he's doing renovations at the moment. And with the new set of board of trustees, our plan is to approach him and make an offer to co-own the assets. Now, the reason for that, and we've made it very clear to the buyer, the deed of sublease of that club is very clear that only residents can be members of that club. So if you do not partner with the community, you really cannot generate any income. So it has to be a buy-in of all the homes and all the members of the PORA. So we are engaging him. One of the good things of having a constituted board of trustees is that we can have those discussions. If those discussions fall apart, I know one of the discussions that the trustees are having now is what an alternative will be. So be assured that we'll either get you into the current club or we'll make sure that there's a recreational facility for residents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. With respect to the drug issues, I did say we're going to fight that vigorously, but there must be a clear-cut strategy. In fighting drug today, there are tested approaches to fighting drugs. One, make it very hard for that trade to happen in the estate. Now, the how, the devil is in the details. The how is clear. You know, you said ahead that we have intelligence, the security, they are very good in intelligence. So intelligence gathering will expose such illicit drugs, and therefore, because now I remember clearly that the pack, if they're using drugs in their rooms, there's nothing you can do about that. There is nothing you can do about that. But that you must secure those recreational areas, those areas where they pass these drugs onto through intelligence. Another approach which is being done is education. How do we educate the children? How do we educate the community? And then the family education too. Another is, surveillance with the legal authorities, the agencies responsible for fighting drugs. But I can assure you that for me coming out to serve, I'm not going to expose everything. I have the blueprint because the current deputy head in NDLA was my classmate. I don't want to put on that but you will see when I come in, that issue will be addressed frontally. On the VGC, I think the chair has just stated it. It's very painful. I'm twisted by certain people with vested interest. Clearly for me, we should be joined together to run that estate. And we must do it. We will meet the board of trustees. The club, that's the club. The club, I'm talking about the club. Yes, it's been sold out, so we need to, because we have to enforce. That's why I said our constitution, we need to adhere strictly to our constitution. If the constitution says that the sub-deed list, they say that we cannot, it is only members that are entitled to this club, then if you have to, if you're buying it, you buy it with the sense that only members of this estate should be there. If there is any deviation, then we have to come together. And that's why he said that I agree with the partnership, and we must do that within the next 6 months. Thank you.
Who has the mic?
My questions are to the current chairman. I like data. Data is very good. But you say a lot of things about intelligence. I'll take it on the security part. Intelligence is supposed to help you prevent cases, not react to cases. And you've also mentioned that in the last 1 year, we've had so many cases. So that means that there's something wrong with the intelligence. It's not working. Because it's supposed to help you prevent those things from happening. Because if your enemy attacks you while you have intelligence, you can't achieve anything. Then the second thing, in VGC, I've gone to several meetings, and it's obvious there's something lacking: trust. People, the last one I went to was the IPP meeting. The reason why people disagreed, they didn't want to hear, was they did not trust the system. So how do you plan to change the narrative that people will now start trusting the executive?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate those two questions. They're very pertinent. On the intelligence gathering, I'm sure from my profile, you saw that I have a security background. There's a lot about intelligence that I struggle with speaking about publicly, but I'll give you an example of such intelligence. People talk about the drug fight, like the doctor rightfully said, there's cause and effect. The lab we found in Victoria Garden City came from an investigation and reports that we had been following for such a long time. We were going after people who were selling to our kids in Victoria Garden City. We arrested a few residents' kids, interrogated them, released them, and got information that there wasn't only buying, there was manufacturing. And we went after the manufacturer. A lot of what you're seeing is based on the intelligence we're actually collecting. I mentioned the burglaries. We had a lot of break-ins where people who had left their homes and traveled, there were burglaries into their homes. Part of the intelligence gathering was we started to interrogate, because we didn't have CCTV, there was no way of knowing or watching what was going on. We started to interrogate a lot of helps around the community. We intercepted letters sent across homes with security guards talking about these thefts. And we were finally able to arrest this situation. And I can tell you authoritatively that we completely arrested it based on the intelligence that we had. So there is a lot of gathering going on. It is on such merits that we're now working with the other communities across the axis, because we want to continue to even collect intelligence that better secures you, not just here, but across the axis. Of course, your second question, I'm sorry, trust. That's a big one. It's a really big one. Of course, I've lived here under two chairmen before me. With one of them, I was opposition. I was one of the people that battled him until I joined the executive and understood the intricacies and the difficulties that come with doing this job. I like the talk about transparency. I think we need to do a lot more of that. It's not enough to come out and say you're honest. Sometimes you need to show that you're honest. And part of that is making sure that we put processes in place. But I want to assure this community that all the decision making we make around bettering your lives, especially the financial ones, are based on recommendations that come from your peers. I don't know the people in these committees. It is important that I don't. It's important that there are representation of people in this community. For instance, Dr. Olowu is in my current water committee, and I met him today for the first time. And that shows you how objective we are in making sure that we are transparent. But I agree, I think from all the meetings we've been at, I've noticed the trust deficit. It is something we have to actively work on. It's something we also have to work on together, because some of the things we hear are very foreign to us who are doing this job. But we have to do better ways. We have to come up with better ways to better communicate. And I failed at that in many ways, and I admit that. And I think it's something that we'll definitely do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just, do I have your permission to answer one of two questions? Okay, fine. You know, I had earlier said our current reality is trust deficit. And trust deficit speaks to lack of transparency, accountability, poor communication. A building structure around governance. You see, the governance structure as it is today needs to be overhauled. I see that we tend to say, okay, the EXCO, they are not employees. EXCOs are not employees. EXCOs have offered themselves to serve. But you must strengthen that engine, which is the management, to move across. Now you have to overhaul the governance structure around that. And you have to put, you know, transparency. You see, the point clearly is that you have a budget, you want to exceed the budget, you didn't get approval from the same house that gave you, you did not, you know, put up quarterly management report are supposed to be out for people to know, value for money, audit and all that. And I've just found out that there is no internal control. For me, internal control and audit shouldn't even report to management nor EXCO, so that they will be put on check as to what they are doing. And again, part of that trust deficit is because of vested interest in all that we're doing. There are a lot of vested interest, pockets of vested interest. And so people now try to, and because we also don't communicate, that's another issue. Then, like I said, there is nothing anybody can do here without being lambasted if you don't build a shared value. And that is where you have to bring social cohesiveness among this, so that we can now begin to have trust on one another. So we'll do that by making sure that we put governance around all the structures that we have in the estate. Thank you.
That's two people.
Okay.
There's a gentleman there, after the gentleman there, then the gentleman over here.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Eli Otrofanawe. I live in close 60 F183. Just a few things and an observation. Running the estate via social media has turned out to be the expectation of virtually everyone. And I want to ask the two gentlemen, would you continue running the culture of running the estate via social media, because it is counterproductive and is destroying the estate? The second one is misinformation. I hear the contestant, Dr. Olowu, using the word several times, vested interest. Those things really piss people like me off, because you must be able to say this is VGC. You're not talking about any other, there's nothing secret. If there are vested interests, please say it, because this is the type of misinformation that continues to bring this house down. I also read somewhere a member of this community comes out to say 20-year-old generators should be rehabilitated and it will give 30 more years of life in a Nigeria where you know the conditions under which these generators are operated. That is completely wrong and misinformation, which really frustrating. We all own generators, we run businesses, but a gentleman who had been a member of the EXCO, who had been at the highest level in this estate, says we should use a generator for 50 years and calls people out on the strength of that. And we encourage it on social media because every person has access to talk to people anyhow. This culture needs to stop for us to have a decent community where people will be treated with respect. I only got interested in estate activities about less than a year ago. And honestly, the reason I got interested was because I made conscious effort to go and ask questions. And I find out that there's a lot of misinformation, lies being peddled by people in a respected community like this. It is very wrong. So I want to know from you guys, how are we going to stop this? When are we going to call people out? And I start with you. Who are these vested interests and what are they doing against our interests? Because it is my interest, it is your interest. So say it out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You want to start?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he directed that straight to me. You see, let me tell you, vested interest. No, let me say something first. I need to put that clear. I'm not afraid to make the hard judgment call. But to answer your first question, responsible organizations should not run entirely on social media. Social media is an enabler, but you cannot divulge what is happening. It's happening, you heard Trump say fake news. It's all there. Okay? So we have various ways of communicating. You cannot rule out that people want to say whatever they want to say. So to answer your question straight, it's not going to be run on social media. There will be, there was one beautiful suggestion, and that is creating a functional website where you drop the information. Any person can go to that website and get all that you need to know about the estate and ask questions and will be addressed. On vested interest, let me tell you something. I've been in water committee. We have not been able to decode, okay, the transaction that went through this water. We have not been able to. Then a respected learned fellow suggested that we get the SPA. Till today, we've not gotten it. See, root cause analysis. We need to address root cause analysis and not be doing flying blind. We need to get details. The people who sold that, HFP is under receivership. It's under receivership. Can we have what you sold? Because all of us, it does not come out today. And we're talking about arbitration and we're talking about, we need to get to the root bottom. What are those stopping it? You want to, so I have told you about the vested interest. I have.
Thank you.
I have. You want, so can you get the SPA? Have you gotten that?
Hello.
No,
Hello.
I will tell you all that. And
Can we have the call, please?
And there are more.
Excuse me. When we started here, I did say that we should have some decorum. If everyone is shouting at each other, how do you hear each other? How do you do? We are not kids now, we're adults here. Please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I'll get the chance to answer.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Elaye, for those questions you asked. Again, very important questions. Your question on social media is one that hits home I served under the last chairman of VGC, and I saw how difficult it was to manage a community of 2,460 homes and 10,000 people, and I saw it wear him out. He's a very good friend of mine. And I remember at the end of his tenure, I said to him, you know, it is a very difficult job to do, especially with all the things that happen on social media, and you have to read it, and people are questioning your credibility. People are mentioning things that they don't understand about what it takes to run this community. And he said to me, I've not been on social media. And I said to myself, maybe it's because he's 72. And because I'm younger, I will decide to engage a bit more. Of course, in many ways, that backfired. There are certain things I mentioned on social media where I could no longer talk as a resident. I had to talk as chairman. So a lot of things I said were misconstrued. Some of them even mentioned in court documents. So that, of course, made me step back from that. Now, also time. This place has a lot of moving parts. We're constantly working. I can tell you that if I was not here, this is like a holiday for me. Because if I was not standing here for the past 3 hours, I'd probably be called to some security issue or some water issue or some power issue somewhere. And because it's so engaging to manage people from so many diverse backgrounds, social media is not something I've personally been able to engage with, or I think I'll be able to engage with. I think now that we will have a full EXCO, because a number of you must know that we ran a lean EXCO the last time around. Now that it seems like we'll have a full EXCO, I'm sure there'll be better engagement between the executive and people on social media. On the discussion around vested interest. Of course, I heard the doctor mention it twice. I wasn't going to bring it up publicly because I was going to talk to him after, just to get a bit more information on who these vested interests are. Because it's important to me as chairman that I ensure that I have not done any business with any vested interest. I have not made any decision for this community that goes against the will of every single person in this community. And I've said it before, and I remember my first week as chairman, the first meeting I had with my EXCO, I told them 2 things. I said, 1, we're not going to lose anybody to any unnatural causes because I have to live with that for the rest of my life. And I said, the second one is we're going to have no problems with money because nobody ever forgets when you have problems with money. Now I'm going to add a third one, doctor. If there's ever proof that I have done any VGC business, your business, with any vested interest, or vested interest has influenced the work we've done as an executive, I will resign. But there has to be proof that this has been done, because I assure you that this has never been the case. I've been searching for this vested interest. I've been searching for the cabals that back the executive. I tell you this because I ran unopposed, as many of you know. I didn't have to come out of any groups. I didn't need any votes. I was unanimously picked to run. For that reason, I've been able with my executive to do this work without any influence from any groups, from any cabals, from any vested interest. So of course, Doctor, I'll have a personal conversation with you about this to get a bit more information. Thank you very much.
We do have questions from people online.
Please, I have to ask this question. Please, I've been raising my hand since.
Okay, all right.
Thank you very much. My question is directly to Dr. Uche. We were on WhatsApp before, WhatsApp platform. Then when we migrated to the Telegram platform, I was the first person, the first greeting was from me. The first question on that platform was from me. The first question on water, before everybody picked it up, was from me. You can go and verify. Now, you mentioned something in your introduction, that they are vested interest and that you are going to break them. Please, I want to know this vested interest and how you are going to, as if you are elected, to break them. I'll be so happy. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I thought you had answered that question before.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
We've answered it now.
Pastor Kayode, I believe that Mr. Uche answered that question earlier on. Oh, hold on. One at a time. Pastor Kayode, calm down. Pastor Kayode, calm down. Because if we are talking, can we have decorum, please? Maybe you did not hear Mr. Uche Messiah when he spoke. I think you need to clarify what you said so that we can put this to bed. Clarify what you said, sir.
Thank you. You see, I didn't speak Latin, and I gave you an example. That example was very lucid and clear. You know, we sought for information. That information will help in decision making. From who? Huh? Yeah. Sorry. No, see, water. Let me tell you. Okay. Sorry.
Hello. Excuse me, please. Are you going to allow him to talk or not? Are you going to allow him to talk or not?
No, I have, but I needed to let pastor. I think you are pastor, isn't it? You are a pastor. So we share common, excuse me, please. Can you be? You see, you know, when I said, I started, and you should know where I quoted from the Bible. I exercise my conscience, void of offense towards God and towards man. I'm neutral. I wasn't sponsored by anybody. It is an of force. People, even they said, and chairman has also, I don't have any issue with chairman, okay? There's a trust deficit. So what spurred me in was that we should build a cohesive, social, responsive community. You want to get an information because people have been branding all kinds of facts and information about water. And we dug deep into getting the foundation of what transpired. The people are living and they never got that information. They're living. We didn't get that to make that decision. What does that speak to? All of us here are learned. We're literate enough. So what do you speak to that? It is all this that now creates that trust deficit we're talking about. And some people feel that, oh, we have been in this estate for these donkey years and all that. We made this and we made that. And what we say must happen is the collective will of the assembly here that matters much. As the chairman, if get elected, I will only do the collective will of the people and not whoever that is who's that is been this or been that. No. So that's what I'm saying. Because you only have to build that to create that trust. And once you do that, you have everybody. So information flow. You can go and verify. Maybe after now we can talk. After now we can talk. Later now you will say, okay, how do I want to fight drugs? The strategies that we put there. I mean, I have spoken and I've spoken. Hold me accountable for every word that I've spoken here in the next week when we're reviewing. We could even review every quarter, every year.
Okay, I do have one more hand raised.
Thank you. My name is Ife Alabi once again. I will want to take the current chairman on this, and that is in respect of the development levy. I'm not an accountant, but my own knowledge of management will tell me that some things are amiss in the newsletter, which was meant to be January to March, but which was already sent out some 2 weeks ago, capturing only January, not talking about what will happen in February and March because we want to have a manifesto night or because we want to have an election. Be that as it may, from the budget, development budget, I want to talk in terms of figures now. You have a development expected budget of 547 million, which you estimated you will collect from residents. And up till now, you have an actual of 282 million. In essence, you have expended the sum of 200 million for upfront payment of CCTV. You only have a balance of 82 million. Going further on the analysis of the newsletter, you have collected an actual of 45% of what you are expecting, and you have expended 52%. Where have you gotten the extras from? That is one. We are now, as it is, we don't know the current situation of the, what's it called? The CCTV. We don't know the progress report on it, but let's leave that aside. Where do you want to pay? Because you only have 45% collection. Where do you hope to finance the balance? Are you going to take from the reserves of the association? That is one. You have other projects, other important projects. God forbid, the rain will soon start. The body in charge of weather has told us we should expect some flooding this year. Should there be, in the same proposal, you told us how much you want to spend on flooding. Now you have expended all monies on paying CCTV. I don't know where that is done, that you have to pay 75% or 80% upfront on a project we have not seen. And in the past few months, we know what we have experienced in terms of light. When we don't have light, how is the CCTV going to operate? Is a misplaced priority. That is what I want to say. And quickly join to that, you talk on the project of Light Up VGC. Good enough, good idea, laudable idea. But the problem we are always having in this nation, and which we are having in VGC as well too, we love to award projects. We don't do the necessary follow-up. Only yesterday, you said light up. Yes, there are some places the lights are there, it's up. But I want to challenge you tonight and to the vice chairman who said she's in charge of a dustbin and all of it. Take a walk from the security post up to Road 2 roundabout. I did yesterday. I counted over 42 lights that are malfunctioning from the newly installed. Where is the value for the expenditure which you have made? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, very important concerns. And again, I see an issue with our push out of information. Of course, the development levy, only about 59% of that was put towards the CCTV project. Another 17% went to the purchase of the fire trucks. The flooding and drainage works, which you mentioned, was 9% of that. The purchase of the generators, 7%, which we've purchased those generators. The purchase of the man lift, 4%, we've purchased that. The perimeter fence for the commercial area was also part of that development levy, which covered 4%, and we've also completed that. So we are not concentrating, hopefully, on the CCTV project. That development levy breakdown that I just gave you, we have done everything but completed everything but 2 items on that. I will say that financially, one of the things we've been trying to do is to be a lot more aggressive in collecting. We work closely with our finance committee. My treasurer, our treasurer, and our financial secretary worked very closely with them on how to collect. We don't have extremely healthy reserves. And understanding the situation of the country, we definitely do not plan to expend what we have. You know, we will continue to strive to collect on monies we're being owed as the only way to complete projects like this. You know, as far as the importance of projects, I'm not sure what projects you can put above another. The first job I have as chairman, and the executive has, is to secure life and property. We've had a number of incidents, like I mentioned a few earlier, but 2 that ring out was, we had 2 near kidnaps in the commercial area in VGC. One of the cases, the resident happened to be very close to the commissioner of police. So the commissioner of police came down here. And when he came down here, the first thing he asked us was, where is the feed? So we can know what cars the perpetrators went out in. We know what their movement was in the commercial area. And we didn't have those feeds. And I had to ask myself as chairman, even though I did mention that the recommendation for this CCTV was done 2 EXCOs ago. The vendor process had started before I became chairman. My job was to implement. How this was going to be financed was also recommended before I became chairman. We put together committees that fine-tuned the financing. It became important to me that as part of our security apparatus, that this is a project we run side by side with other projects. On the flooding, a lot of that work has been done. The little flooding we've seen in the last year was because of the overflow from the canal. Now what we've done, we used to spend about 2 million every 4 months clearing the canals. Now we've partnered with Lagos State government. For the first time in nearly 10 years, they cleared our canals 3 months ago. So we're now in discussions with them. In fact, we got the House of Assembly Speaker, Deputy Speaker. We got the House of Reps member representing Etiosa to come down and look at those flooding areas. And they moved into action, which is very difficult to get government to do. But we've continued to engage them. So we are saving costs in certain places, having to reconcile that with other expenses we're making in other places. And, you know, like many people have said, including the financial people, all of these breakdowns have been given in reports to the community. I will say to the GM, we have to make that available again, especially after this meeting, because I'm sure a number of these questions on where we're raising the money, how we're raising the money, how much we've raised, all of this information has been moved into the community. We maybe have to collate that and send it out again. So I see a lot of information that hasn't gone out, and I ensure that we will definitely do that. Thank you.
Good evening once
Okay.
again. I am Prince Larry Osagiobari. I've been here in this estate for about 30 years. And I've seen many EXCOs. But one thing I want to point out today is the issue of trust. That's why you have this rancor, this disunity in this estate. Why is it so? Some time ago, we were told by the executives that the money for the CCTV was 433 million, that was the baseline, the limit on negotiation. But a lot of people here disallowed that and said, no, it can't be. There are professionals here, OIT and all that. So they called a subcommittee, and that subcommittee was able to save for this estate 40 million naira. Now, why was the EXCO unable to save that money even before we called the subcommittee? Don't we deserve to be apologized to for not recognizing that such money can be saved from that CCTV? And today, these same people want to come and serve again. What is the trust? Why must I vote you? You have to convince me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that question. Trust is something that we definitely have to work on. Again, I see a lot of lapses in information going out to the community. The initial project cost that was given to us on that project by the vendor was 674 million. We put together a joint committee of the procurement, finance, and security committees. And by the time they sat, they brought this cost down to 340 million by reducing the scope. It's very important that I say that. It wasn't a case of the contract was inflated. We had to reduce the scope and do it in phases. Now, of course, I agree with you. The House mandated that we put together an ad hoc committee of professionals to look into the BOQ. Of course, that job was done very well. The committee reduced some items on the BOQ and increased others, of course, due to inflation. Some of the things that were changed in that BOQ were the change of the model of the joysticks, change of the model from 9 screens to 6 screens, change the model of the inverter, reduce the installation materials, couplers, benders, and then the annual maintenance was pegged at 3% as against the vendor proposed 7%. It's important that we note the reason we were able to save is we had to change the configuration on the initial project we were doing without compromising on the job. So I do give it to the committee that they did not compromise on the quality because the cameras are the most important things. The other screens and the joysticks, there were a lot of reductions there that eventually saved that 40 million. But I want to also assure you that there was no case of an inflation. And you are right. As chairman, I owe you that apology, that the first time around, we should have done a more thorough job on this project. But the most important thing is that a committee made up of our peers, like every other committee we have, was able to save us this money. And I appreciate the work they've done. I appreciate the work all the committees have done. But it's important to note that the configurations were changed on the project, and that's how that money was saved. Thank you.
Good evening, residents. My name
Hello.
is Dele. My name is Dele Ojomo. I live on close 60, house F18. I'm an engineer. You can do things different ways. You want to travel to Lekki, you can go with a Lamborghini. a good Mercedes Volkswagen if you get you there. But the difference is the comfort in getting you there and how quickly you can get there. The point I'm trying to raise is that the reason why we come to this body is that when we give the executive something to do for us, they come back and we review what they've done. And at every time, if we think we can do better, we look for ways to do it better. It is not to put them down out of trust, because it's always a better way to do anything. Of course, you can analyze things to death until you lose the value of it. So I'm trying to say that as a member of this community, I want to appreciate the executives for what they are doing. It's important we realize that we are not paying these people any salary. And we do not want to discourage people who want to come and serve us by denigrating them. At the same time, yes, the issue of trust, we need to keep working at it. And I'm glad that our chairman and those who will be coming after him, we're going to build on that trust. It's not going to happen overnight. It will take time. So I want to plead with all of us. Let's give them the opportunity to serve us as long as we want to be there. If we don't want them, we'll vote them out, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those comments. You know, I've always said, and I will cede to Doctor, you know, I've always said you can only do a job like this if community service is important to you. It cannot be for any other reason, because those reasons actually do not exist. It is a very thankless and tiring job. You have to want to serve the community. You have to want to better the community. And I remember when the candidacy of Doctor came up, I was glad in many ways that it was a serving member of the community that was running. He serves in the current water committee. And it's important that I state that regardless of the outcome of this election, because like I said, it's just a popularity contest. It doesn't tell you who wants to serve and who doesn't. That if we do get reelected, I would want you to come a lot closer to the executive. And because the journey to actually serving this community is a very difficult one. You have the lives of over 10,000 people in your hands. The decisions you make every day influence the lives of the people here. So I want to, with thanks to you, I want to say that we have to continue to work together to build this community. Thank you.
I have a question. I have a question for both the chairman and Mr. Uche Messiah.
All right, children. So I was just trying
hold
to
on. We'll call on you. We'll call on you shortly. I've had friends of mine ask me this question. Is it true that there are a lot of Yahoo boys in BGC? And people said yes. Now, my problem is, who are those that are letting their houses to these people? Because it gives us a bad name. And also, some of these Yahoo boys could also be purveyors of drugs that come into our estate. So I think for us as homeowners, I think we need to vet whoever is coming in and not just think about the money you're going to collect, because that would be a disaster in the making for this estate. If there are so many Yahoo boys in this estate, then this estate is losing its essence, and it will be sad for us to go down that road. But what would you do as chairman if you come in, and as chairman if you are re-elected, to stem this flow of these Yahoo boys who find this very serene estate as a haven for them to do their dubious activities?
All right, thank you very much. I think one of the most important things to do is profiling. I know one a former MD of a bank. He's about letting his house to a current resident that is moving, and what he did, without unknown to the tenant, the prospective tenant, that he was profiling. So he asked me, and we did put some things to profile the tenant, and came out clean. I think what we should do is to put up a structure around profiling tenants, around profiling the people in the estate, because it's very critical. You don't want to destroy this estate by allowing those miscreants to come and cause mayhem in the society. So we'll do a lot of profiling with the assistance, because we may not have that capacity, but we have to procure that capacity to profile.
Thank you very much. Again, an important question, and the doctor has talked about profiling, which is a very effective and important way of knowing the people that you let into your community and into your space. I will say, yes, we do have a number of Yahoo boys in this community. We also have Yahoo men, not as many women. A criminal is a criminal regardless of what search engine you put in front of their names. And it's important that we have profiles in place for the sort of residents we want to allow into this community. One of the things that we've done in the last year is we've started background checks for tenants coming into Victoria Garden City. We do the same for staff now. And so we have we're trying to gather as much information on the people that we have around us. Another thing will be to increase our standards. There are certain places where these people don't want to live. And if we're able to build that bubble, I don't see them moving in here. There are a number of things on intelligence that we've done, which I wouldn't want to mention here, but we've had incidents of people coming to the management office and saying, this chairman is now arresting us because we're driving nice cars. Tell him we'll move out. And I tell the management office to tell them that we'll do send-off parties for them. Anybody that's afraid to live within the laws of this community, among decent people who have worked very hard and very tirelessly to build their homes, to rent their homes, because across borders of tenants and homeowners, there are a lot of very good people in this community, and we need to protect them. And in protecting them, we'll ensure that a number of these people leave and we don't have new ones enter. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Gayan. There's a question online from Ogbole, and it's directed to you, believe it or not. It says, congratulations for appointment as chairman for estates, and this act is definitely a plus for BGC Pora. As chairman of BGC Pora, how would you manage both positions if re-elected?
Thank you very much for that question, Mrs. Ogbole. First of all, it's not chairman. I'm the vice president of LESA. Now, the Lekki Estate and Residents Association is every community, is the stakeholder body that manages every community from 1004 to Ekpe. So there's over 1,000 estates captured under the LESA group. It's important that I state that I didn't seek this position. I didn't put myself forward. I was not, it wasn't on my radar. Of course, with the participation of over 1,000 estates, again, I was picked on merit and ran unopposed for that position. It is service. Anyone that is service-driven is tireless about bringing a better quality life to the people that they care about. Like I said when I started my intro, I wear 3 hats in life: my personal life, my business life, and community service. This for me is the life that I've dedicated my heart to. My being vice president of LESA does not affect my work in Victoria Garden City in any way. It is also important that I bring to light that the former chairman of VGC, Architect Ladega, while he was chairman, was also nominated and has represented LESA as vice president till my nomination. And of course, the jobs he did here were tireless. The jobs he did on the axis were tireless. He worked on the flooding here in VGC while he worked on the flooding on the axis. So anyone that is driven to service can handle as much pressure as comes to them. Yes, we'll be tired, but it's what we're built for and what we'll continue to do. So no, it will not affect the work I do here. We'll just be tired. Thank you.
All right, then there's one more question for you from someone online as well. Emmanuel Umunizua. It goes, the current hardship being experienced by residents when driving out towards Aja and or Ikota as a result of the ongoing road construction is really heartbreaking. If voted in, do you commit to achieving the following within the first 100 days of your tenure? To 1, creation of a temporary car park for residents with cards to help them park and go into transact business in the Kota shopping complex. And 2, creation of a U-turn adjacent to Northwest Petrol Station for residents driving towards Aja so they don't have to drive over 1 kilometer to turn at the toll gate.
Thank you very much for those questions. Of course, like you mentioned in your write-up, the experience has been heartbreaking for all of us. In fact, we've had a number of residents move out of the community because of the backlogs and the traffic caused by the construction. One of the hardest things about this job where we've had to face in 2 years is engagement with the government. VGC is a government of its own, battling against all the external factors of external government. On this issue of traffic, we've constantly engaged them. This morning, a resident stopped me while I was on my bike and mentioned about the U-turns and hoodlums moving the boulders for people to turn. And I said to her, just 3 weeks ago, a number of those boys were arrested. LESA put together a task force with the various agencies on the island, on the axis, and we arrested a number of them, only to hear 3 weeks later, they're back here. Of course, you must know that all of these groups that are nuisance to our axis have leaders. A lot of these leaders are also political. A lot of the engagements, and I've constantly engaged the government, but you must know, and we're all Nigerians, so we know we're in political season. A number of these guys, the government has decided not to touch, but we've continued to engage them on the job that they're doing. We constantly engage them, even as LESA, even as VGC. As far as promises and 100 days of our tenure, the creation of the temporary car park, I cannot say that I will do this in 100 days because there are a number of parameters that would lead to this being actionable. Do we actually have the land? Do we have residents with land in the commercial area that are willing to allow us use their land? If we do use their land, can we provide the security for the vehicles that are there? So there are a number of things we have to look at and think about. But one thing I do promise you is that I will take this up with the maintenance committee, the security committee, and we'll look at it and see if we do have the land available, if we can provide this service, because anything we can do to alleviate the suffering of the community will definitely take serious. On the creation of a U-turn, I can tell you that currently there's an engagement going on between two of the former chairmen of Victoria Garden City and the state government on how to make this happen. Also, I know it is something that the current Board of Trustees has taken on board. We're trying to figure out how this can be done, added to the current project. But again, like I said, this is government. It seems to be us versus the government. But of course, in the last 2 years, we've built a better relationship and we're trying to get them to alleviate some of this suffering. Thank you.
Okay, I have an online question for Dr. Uche. This is from Pat Alu, and it goes, as a member of the Water Committee, you are not able to get information. What will you do differently on the water issue if as a committee member you are unable to do that?
Well, thank you, Pat, for that question. The point clearly now is that, like the vice chairman stated clearly, the water issue or some mediation is taken in phases, but we know where it's going to end to. We are going to take this matter using the law process. We're going to compel that information to be out. There is no two about it, because we need to have the very fundamentals so that, you know, if the fundamentals are not right, if the foundation be wrong, what can the righteous do? So when we use the law, let's see the step, the mediation, what the mediation outcome will be. We'll take it up from there. But I can assure you that this all-important resource that God has given to us must be addressed headlong, no matter who is who. Thank you.
Okay, and the final one from Imamuzo Idebeso to our current chairman. It says, Mr. Mbelu, you mentioned the mandate group which you formed. What happened to the mandate group, and how has the mandate group contributed to the growth of VGC?
Thank you very much for that question. Of course, what had happened was in 2016, at a barbecue in the park, a few residents came up to me and mentioned a lot of the difficulties they had with information, a lot of what I also have not done perfectly, obviously. And I sat with them and said, look, we have to go together as a group and confront these matters. We did, and the then chairman, Akete Ladega, closed that gap between the issues that we had and the questions we had by giving us answers. And that eventually was what built into a much calmer movement. They're very essential movements in VGC. I think that a lot of issues are discussed in that group. I'm not as active as I was. In fact, I have not been active at all since becoming chairman. Because when you become chairman of a community, there are various groups. There's over 20 groups here. So I've not actually said a word. I've not met anybody from the mandate group because, and I apologize to them for that, because at the point I became chairman, they became residents and no longer my group. Of course, when you run for election in VGC, you have to solicit support from all groups. But more importantly, we must see everyone in this community as a resident. Running for this election, I'm running purely on the merits of the work we've done. I have not reached out to one group asking for votes. I have not reached out to one individual, not even a friend asking for a vote. I have no banners with my face on it. I don't intend to have any. I have no flyers. We're running purely on the merits of the work we've done and the work that we need to continue. So every group is important. Like I said, I've not been active in any. I was also lucky, and this is important going forward, is when we find individuals, and that's why I'm going to task you, win or not, on serving this community actively. Because when you find people who are driven to serve, they should be picked on merit for the service that they've done. It helps. I came in unopposed, and for that reason, I had no reason to be accountable to any group. I didn't have a reason to explain to a particular group what the decisions I was making. My work was purely to do the bidding of the entire community. So how you come into an office also matters. So like I said, regardless of outcome, we'll all work closely together for our community. Thank you.
Okay, we are running out of time. I have one.
Respond to my good friend, the chair, our respected chair.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
One minute.
Let me put it clearly. I've been in leadership position. What is required of you is to make the hard judgment call. Then you must also communicate to people. You must not take people for granted. That's period. On the issue of banner or no banner, you've been chairman, and they know you as chairman. Certainly, if I were chairman, I will also campaign on what is. I have not been chairman. You alluded to the fact that you didn't even know me. So how would people know me? So it wouldn't be an issue of whether banner or no banner. But you see, for me, I see this as a play. It's a play to build the social cohesiveness. I would have expected that people will even bring more banner. And when any stranger comes into this place, they see that there is that social cohesiveness. So it's not an issue. The issue there is that this is a call to service. And like you said, it's a call to service. And we got to serve, we're going to communicate, we're going to carry everybody along. Thank you.
Okay, we have the
Just to say, that was, my banner comment was not a dig at you in any way. I was just talking about my run as chairman. I mean, I appreciate what you said. I understand that people know me, and that's why I kept centering around the need to continue to serve. And that's how people get to know you for the work you've done. Thank you.
Okay, we have one more question from Oyeye online. Oyeye.
Yes, I'm here. I'm trying to unmute myself.
Yeah, go on.
Can you guys hear me, please?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Finally, I get to speak. All right. My question is targeted to the chairman, Mr. Mbelu. My first question would be, first of all, how do we get a copy of the Constitution and the bylaws? I think it would be useful for everybody to have them if they wanted it. Okay. Then my second question would be to ask you why you made the change to the modality for receiving information in VGC. Prior to your tenure, what was obtainable was that you had two representatives from a compound to get access to it was the Ake app at the time, now it's not a VGC Pora app, to be on the platforms for receiving information, Telegram, WhatsApp, what have you. And then wake up one day and becomes prime and spouse. So what that tells me is that if I'm neither a prime nor a spouse, I'm someone who lives in a BQ or just lives in maybe I whatever, I don't get information. Like literally somebody told me in your office, at the security office, I had to get some information, was very rude and told me that I didn't have any locals to ask, these questions. And I think I remember asking, okay, can I get the numbers of the security people, of the fire service? And she told me no. And so far I'm not the prime or the spouse who is registered in their books, I don't have access to any sort of information. So I said to her, so if fire starts in my house right now, I should die because I'm neither prime nor spouse. You see how that is? I've not forgotten that. I felt very insulted. So I would like to know why, when it was just two people per compound, you figure it out with your landlord, say, okay, how do you want to work? If there are grown children in the house, like my friend's house, she had like grown children, figure out, okay, who is the main person who is in charge of these things? Let the compound, let people who live there know how to allocate themselves or allocate the assets within themselves, not you mandating that it has to be this person or that person. And then unfortunately, your guys in the VGC office make it very difficult to get information. They pass to get information, to get anything across. Like I told her, using the fire example, and the girl was looking at me like, well, that was the directive she was given. She can't give out numbers, even numbers like fire service numbers, like for real. It doesn't make sense to me. That's number one. Number two, what I was going to ask, I don't know if it was here or somewhere that, someone raised the topic of having transportation on the water, like, getting a boat or a ferry that can take people who go to work in VIA, Ikoyi, whatever, like have that sort of arrangement where, there's an alternative means of transport, since we have the waterfront just at the back here. If it's possible to have something, if it's something that the EXCO can look into, since we are trying to better our lives, it would be something that could work. And I spoke earlier on about communication. I would like that communication is more democratic, it's more open, and there's more access. I would rather that everybody who is registered here, who pays dues here, should be registered in their own merits in a way and get access to first-hand information. I shouldn't have to wait to get information. I should be able to access information for myself, for my own betterment, to know how to move, to know how to plan myself. We are all adults here. So please, I would.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Ms. Zonye, for those questions. You mentioned the availability of the Constitution and bylaws. I know that a few times we had sent this out electronically. Again, this is a question of communication, and we will ensure that we get it, that you get it. I'll even do you one better. In our office, we have copies of the Constitution and bylaws. Most people who move into VGC, it's part of the packet that is given to them. I will ensure that the management office look at our database, get your address, and ensure that you get one, because I think it's a good show that you actually want to know what the laws you need to abide by are. On the issue of, I was a bit confused by the issue of shared services, because besides 2 or 3 general dwelling areas, I know that in VGC we only have single family dwellings, or we should have only single family dwellings. So it sounds like you live in one of the dwellings that have a number of people. And we have to figure out how you share your services there. In our database, we only capture the prime and the spouse, and the kids, depending on how much access you need. Of course, we changed the app, and on the app, one of the things we tried to do, because the initial app we had, which was the ARC app, we had been paying for everyone in VGC to be onboarded. We're paying about $6,500 a month. So that's $6,500 a month. When we came in, of course, we decided it made more sense to build our own app. It took just 2 months of that cost to build the entire app that we use today. In fact, we're the only community on the Axis that have our own app. We have control of the information that goes out. We also have ways of securing your information because it is our VGC app. We also try to control the number of people that can get on that app. It's part of securing the community. So every house has a login. You are responsible as the prime for that login. You share it with your spouse, you share it with your kids, but you are responsible. We need to be able to hold a resident responsible for all the actions taken on that app. An example of that was a resident got robbed, and he realized that it was done by staff in his house, and he happened to be a general. So of course he took action, and in the investigation it was shown that while he was out of the country, another resident gave a code to his military officer. And of course, that resident also got arrested. So it's important that we're able to hold the people who have access to that app accountable. And we've made it clear many times, do not give codes to people who you do not know, people who are not your visitors, because if any crime takes place and an investigation is done, you are held liable for that. So I think that's part of why we have restricted the number of codes or the number of access, number of people that can have access to the app. And of course, you talked about the fire service number. If that did happen, and I will investigate that, I apologize. I think every resident should have access to all the essential services we have. If you notice when you open our app, you notice a panic button that we've put there. We're still working on activating it, connecting it to the clinics around here, connecting it to the fire service. So it's open-ended. So I assure you that in the next few months, you would not have to go to the management office to ask for that information. I've been to many communities where a resident has actually never seen the management office. And we're trying to build that sort of system here. I visited 2 or 3 communities where people had never seen their GMs because there was no reason to go to the office, and most things are automated. And it's something that we're definitely working on here. And like I said, I apologize. I'll investigate the information you've given on the fire service number, and we'll definitely do better. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, gentlemen. You can take your seats. I have one more person that we need to speak with. Mr. Rex Osagede, you are next. You